Hey nerds, it's Nathan, and I'm back for only my second pre-con gameplay review. Playthrough review? Gameplay, test play review. I don't know, what sounds better? I'm not sure, I don't care, but let's talk about it. We're talking about the Doctor Who pre-con set. Now, I didn't get every Doctor Who deck, but I did get the Masters of Evil, and my commander was Missy. Oh, yes, wonderful. I wonder if I can get that to focus. Probably not in that particular sleeve, but I am going to have it all up on screen so everybody can see it. Whenever I do a pre-con review, obviously there are dozens of people on the internet who get first look, instant access, that kind of shit, all the gameplay. So I am just a regular consumer, and I'm going to give you the product as a regular consumer. First of all, I am a WHOvian. If you are a Doctor Who fan and you've never really played Magic, that's fine, because if you love Doctor Who, you'll love all these cards. You'll get all the references. If you're a Magic fan and you've never really gotten into Doctor Who, I would suggest picking it up, because these decks are fucking wild. Absolutely wild. So, and the reason they are is because they are so self-specifically designed and encapsulated in on themselves that everything basically works together. And if you want to take certain cards out and into other decks, then they will work too, because they're also Magic mechanics. First off, these were so good. These are so good. It's revamped me to go back and watch Doctor Who. I'm starting from the 9th Doctor, and I'm working my way back up forward. I'm currently halfway through David Tennant's the 10th Doctor cycle. So, if you're a Magic player but you know nothing about Doctor Who, I'll give you a quick breakdown. Doctor Who is a Time Lord. It is a type of alien being. It is a sci-fi show, and basically he recruits a companion from Earth, and he goes off into the solar system to have, well, not even the solar system, through all of space and time to have all these crazy adventures. And some of the decks are based around the older Doctor Who's, back from like the 60s upwards, and one of the other decks is based around the revitalization of the Doctor Who series, which was the 9th and 10th and 12th Doctor. The other deck is based around the final Doctor, the 13th Doctor, or the current, I should say. And then the last deck is the Masters of Evil, which is my deck, which is based around all of the enemies and bad guys and all the nonsense that has happened to the Doctor throughout the years. Sorry, I just knocked the table. Throughout the whole series, and we got some massive heavy hitters. And rewatching the series, actually, there's certain parts where I go, oh, that's where that's from. Of course, how could I forget? So these are just fucking flashback nostalgia for me a little bit, and some of them, the way they're designed is so genuinely epic. But if you're a Doctor Who fan, you've never played Magic, let me give you a tiny little rundown. So I might actually put a car up on the screen so you can see it better. So I'm actually going to put Missy up on the screen. And Missy, if you can see in the top right hand corner, has a little number, a blue symbol, a red symbol, and a black symbol. Now, in Magic, Magic is made up of 5 colors. Red, white, black, blue, green. Perfect. And sometimes colorless, but let's not get into that. So essentially, that's her cost. When we want to play the game, we have things called land and mana rocks. We tap the land to pull the mana out of the environment, or the magic out of the environment, so we can cast our spells. And that means that little number 3, I can use 3 of any color, doesn't care. But at the bare minimum, I need to use 1 blue, 1 black, and 1 red. And that will give me Missy. And Missy is a Time Lord rogue. That's her creature typing. And her super type is legendary creature. Down the bottom, you'll see a little number, a 4/5. 4 is her power, 5 is her toughness, or her attack and defense, if you like. Now, this is so fucking good, because in the Masters of Evil, what makes villains truly, truly epic is the fact that you don't feel like you have a choice, especially Doctor Who villains. It's always end of the world, end of the universe kind of nonsense, unless a doctor does something drastic. And we do that to our opponents, because we have on that bottom part of the text, which I might even highlight for you, at the beginning of your end step, which is the end phase of our turn, each opponent faces a villainous choice. Each artifact creature I control, or you control, deals 1 damage to that opponent, or I draw a card and chaos ensues. The chaos part doesn't matter for the most part. That's a very subset of Magic. We'll just ignore that for now. But you start with 40 life. So every player does. Every player starts with 40 life in a game of Commander. At the end of my turn, I ask my opponent, would you like to take a fuck ton of damage, or allow me to simply draw a card off the top of my deck? And 9 times out of 10, they will say, go fuck yourself, draw a card. And that's the best part. Missy just wants to refill your hand. But as good as that ability is, it's her top part that makes it epic. So we'll bring Missy back up on the screen, and you'll see whenever a non-artifact creature dies, return it to the battlefield face down, tapped under my control as a 2/2 Cyberman. I've got some tokens here. Let's see if we've got. There we are. I'll put that on the. I don't know why I'm doing it this way. I can just put it up on the screen, but I'll put it up on the screen for you. And that is a 2/2 Cyberman. That's what it does. It basically steals your opponent's creatures from their graveyard and turns them into Cybermen. And if you are a Doctor Who fan, if you are a WHOvian, you'll absolutely love that mechanic, because that is exactly what Missy does. She turns everybody in every grave into a Cyberman, which, well, just on point flavor. And that's the whole that's all of their decks. Just pure, beautiful flavor. And that's why I picked her as my commander for this deck. Now, for those of you who don't play Magic, the deck, all the cards in the deck have to have at least one of the colors of my commander. So, like I said, that blue, red, black, all the cards in the deck are going to have one of those colors or a combination, if not all 3. I'd like to talk about the cuts I made, because some of them were just not worth keeping. And one of them, whoops, let me see if I can find it. One of them was the Beast, Deathless Prince. Great fucking episode. The Doctor essentially meets the devil, like the original incarnation of the devil. I think as a commander, it would be a great card. To make a whole deck around it would be really cool. In the deck itself, as one of the 99, it fucking sucks. It's got big power, it's got big toughness, it doesn't cost a lot, it's 2 black and a red, but it enters the battlefield tapped. Now, for those of you that don't play Magic, that essentially means you can't use it for the turn. You can't attack with it. If it has any activated abilities, you can't. It's just wasted. Its little second part of its set, or its third part of its text, is when a creature deals combat damage to its owner, you get to untap it and draw a card. But there's a whole bunch of other mechanics in here that just make it so hard to use, because you play it and then you get to steal the creature, because in the episode, the Beast kind of possesses someone. The devil possessed them, which makes total sense. It all fits the theme. The card basically does exactly what the creature does in the episode. It's fucking cool. But it's really slow, and it's really inefficient, and it's really ineffective. So I tried playing it. I did. I haven't played every card in the deck, obviously. That's just impossible. It is random. It's a game. You always don't get 101 turns to play. Each deck has 100 cards in it. You're not going to get there. But in saying that, I did get to play this card, and gotta go. So the first card that I replaced it with was Jorah of the Gitu. I'm showing you again, but I'm going to put it up on the screen. So Jorah is from another set. And for my Magic people and my non-Magic people, Jorah is a legendary human wizard. Her power and toughness, or her attack and defense, is 2 and 2. She costs one generic mana and a blue and a red. She has an ability on her, which is 2 generic mana, to basically take a card from your hand and put it outside the game with 4 time counters on it. At the start of your turn, you take one of those counters off. It slowly comes back, And essentially, once all of the time counters are removed off it, it comes from outside the game straight onto your battlefield. That is essentially what one of the Doctor's decks do, but they've renamed it Time Traveling, whereas this was from a really old set and they called it Suspend because it's suspended outside the game. Because of the Doctor Who, all the Doctor Who cards call it Time Traveling because it's outside the game and you manipulate the counters so you can either put more or less on so they come into the battlefield or they stay where they're supposed to stay outside of time, outside of space. You can't touch them. Obviously, this was an instant include because some of the cards have enormous mana costs, which, like, let's have a look at, here we go, the new Wound Reflection. I'll put that up on the screen as well. The Wound Reflection has a mana cost of 6. I can, if I have this at my hand at the start of the game, I pay that little 2 cost, and it disappears into the ether for 4 turns. 4 turns. Why not? I've got a bunch of Time Lords in here. Why can't I have them? Why can't I have some time traveling nonsense? I mean, the Daleks do it. Everybody seems to be able to fucking jump through time at one point or another, so I figured, why not? There was no time travel-esque aspects in this deck. Now there is, which is excellent. The second card I got rid of... New card. The Master Formed Anew. Now, this is one of the old versions of the Master, which is the Doctor's like great mortal enemy. He costs 1 blue and 1 black. He has 0 power and 1 defense. Seems really crappy, except has this ability called Body Thief. When you cast a spell, you exile a creature you control and put a takeover counter on it. You may have the Master Formed Anew enter the battlefield as a copy of the creature exiled with a takeover counter on it. Again, a really, really interesting mechanic, and I think a few people who actually play the game, Magic, would really like this. There's a lot of blue-black clone decks. I think this would be really interesting to play. I think it would be a really good commander, a legendary creature, to build a deck around, because you can just... You can kind of build your board, and then you can play it, and the other one goes into exile, but then you can bounce the Master back to your hand, and then you can play it again and exile something else, and then as you need things, you can just continuously throw the Master on and off the battlefield to pick the best creature exiled with it, just for funsies. And I don't know, and there are theft cards in blue, so you could steal something of your opponent's, exile it, and then you could get a copy of it whenever you want to cast the Master. So I think it's a weird, interesting mechanic. Again, it fits the theme of what the Master does, but it was really weird in the deck. Every time, I think I've played this deck 4, maybe 5, I think 5 times since I got the Precon, and I think it's come into my hand at least 3 times, and every time I've gotten it, I've gone, I don't want this, because why would I want a copy of something I already have and exile the original? Because then if something happens to the Master Formed Anew, I've lost my original. I can't get it back. It's fucked off forever, and I don't know, it didn't feel good. I didn't like it. Every time I had it in my hand, it was just a wasted card. So that was my second cut. And with that, I actually put a much higher mana cost card in here. But another one which I feel fits the theme, I'll bring it up. I wonder if you can guess it for my people, if they can see that tiny artwork, my magic peeps. Alright, it is, bring it up, Breach the Multiverse. So, Breach the Multiverse says each player mills 10 cards. For my WHOvians that have no idea what that means, you take the top 10 cards of your library and you stick it into your graveyard. There are themes and strategies built around making sure someone's deck is entirely put into their graveyard so they can't use it, and then they lose the game. Going on with Breach the Multiverse, back up we go. For each player, choose a creature or planeswalker card in that player's graveyard, put those cards onto the battlefield under your control, then each creature you can't control becomes a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. My WHOvians, the only parts of that you need to care about is the fact that it's another fuck you to all your opponents, whereas you put a bunch of cards from their library into their graveyard and you get to steal a creature card, like we had with Missy and Joyra. and a few others. Creaturing is a creature is a type of card. This is a sorcery, which you'll probably see when I bring it up. It came from a set which was all about breaking through the multiverse and everything else. I feel it is so fitting for Doctor Who, and it is also just more... It's one of those Masters of Evil thing. It's like, I'm not only taking away part of your deck, I'm pulling creatures out of the graveyard and I'm stealing them for myself, and I'm going to use them to attack you and hurt you. So evil, so beautiful. Mwah. Just, I felt that it was really, really fitting. They're the only two changes I've made to the deck so far. Everything else has been fucking fantastic. Or at least everything I've used so far has been fucking fantastic. If you want to get into the game and you are a WHOvian, definitely pick up one of these precons, because everything in the deck supports itself. So it's very, very highly synergized. Some people build their own decks and they have multiple themes and they have multiple strategies, and they can sort of flip and flop between the two. These do as well, but they're much more narrow and hyper-focused. I want to talk about some of the absolute VIPs of this deck, the MVPs of this precon. Obviously, Missy being the commander is just bonkers. She's excellent. But during gameplay, the MVPs of this deck are, like, first of all, has to be the Dalek Emperor. I'll bring that up on the screen now. The Dalek Emperor has a huge mana cost, as you can see. 5 black and red. But he's got this beautiful little ability on him that says he costs one of those generic mana less for each Dalek you control. And the deck has a few Daleks in it. It does, which is great. And then it says other Daleks you control have haste. Haste is a keyword. Haste means I can use it and I can attack with it straight away. I have to. So, then, once again, we have that villainous choice. And that villainous choice is so fucking good. And it is so flavorful. So it says, at the beginning of combat, that's another phase in my turn cycle. In the beginning of that particular phase, on my combat phase, each opponent, so it goes around the table once again, makes a villainous choice. That player sacrifices a creature they control. Or I get to make a 3/3 Dalek with Menace, which is another keyword. I'll bring that up. Look at this little token. Look at this little Dalek token. How cute. Menace means it can only be blocked by a minimum of 2 creatures. So you have to kind of waste more creatures in order to stop a Dalek, which again fits because they're so powerful, they're so dangerous. But the Dalek Emperor is awesome because if you're at a table of 4 or a table of 5 like I was at one point, I have 4 opponents. I'm one of 5. I have 4 opponents. I go around. Do you want to sacrifice something? They're like, no, of course not. Have you, stupid Dalek. Do you want to do it? No, of course not. Have you, stupid Dalek. You, same thing again. Fuck no. I want to keep my creatures. I want to keep my board. Have you, stupid Daleks. So I play the Emperor, and in one turn I have 4 extra creatures that have to be double blocked, and it's just so good, so good. Unfortunately, they don't have flying, even though they can. They have mana. You can't get everything perfect, but I think they did a really good job. I think it's damn near perfect, if I'm being perfectly honest. But the Dalek Emperor was absolutely the MVP of every game I played where I got to play the Dalek Emperor. Even at some points where I was like, it's not worth it. I don't have a single Dalek to cheapen his cost. Doesn't matter. Play it, because he's going to give you a bunch of fucking Daleks. He's going to give you an army, and that fits again with the theme of the show. The Dalek Emperor stole all these humans, mutated them into Daleks, and then put them in their shells and turned them into the Daleks that they are, that are slightly corrupt. But it makes perfect sense. Sacrifice, get a Dalek. That's what he did. He stole humans, made them into Daleks. Fuck yeah. Like, it's so cool. I'm geeking out. I'm geeking the fuck out. And another one which was just genuinely fun and kind of stupid is the Flood of Mars. I'll bring that up now. It's 2 generic, and then it requires a minimum of 2 of those blue water symbols. It has an ability called Island Walk. Can't be blocked as long as the defending player controls an island. It's water-based, you know, the whole shebang. Island Walk is a mechanic in Magic. Perfect. 3 power, 3 toughness, or 3 attack and 3 defense. Water always wins. Whenever the Flood of Mars attacks, put a flood counter on another target creature or land. Right? And we're getting a bit tricky, but stay with me if you can. If it's a creature, it becomes a copy of the Flood of Mars. If it's a land, it becomes an island in addition to its other land types. And I can sort of show you what I mean by that. I'll bring up... Here we go. I'll bring up Smoldering Marsh on the screen so you can see it. Smoldering Marsh has land and then 2 types next to it. Swamp and mountain. Black and red. That's where we get that from. And then the Flood of Mars will make it a swamp, a mountain, and an island, which allows us that island walk. When I tell you that this was the funnest and funniest card I've probably ever played with, I mean it, because I smacked someone who had an island, so I put the counter on a creature, and their creature became the Flood of Mars. And then instead of attacking me later on, they wanted to hit someone else, so they hit someone else with the Flood of Mars, and they got that trigger, and they stuck it on something else. That was the most fucking ridiculous thing ever, because long after the Flood of Mars, my version of the Flood of Mars, was destroyed and taken care of and fucked off the board and into the graveyard, there were still 3 Floods of Mars left, and it just kept swapping around. I got another one, someone else got another one, someone destroyed another one, someone makes another one, someone's got an island now that they didn't have before, so everyone started hitting them because it was just a free fucking hit. It was so fucking funny watching everyone turn these big, powerful, really impressive creatures into the Flood of Mars and then smacking someone else because they now have islands that they didn't have before. Just genuinely entertaining. Next one is Renegade Silent, an alien horror, 3 power and 3 toughness. At the beginning of your end step, goad 1 target creature you don't control, which is that effect again where we make them attack another player. And then I put a +1 counter on the Renegade Silent. +1 counters are an increase to the attack and the defense. They're permanent, they stay on there, so they just stack continuously. And then it phases out of the game, so it kind of just disappears temporarily. And when does it come back in? Until my next turn. So basically, at the end of my turn, I go, I'm going to make your creature attack. I'm going to make my creature bigger, and then I'm just going to disappear. And that's the silence, isn't it? That's the silence. They're going around, they're manipulating people, they've got this huge evil plan, but the moment you're not looking at them, they're gone. They don't exist. You don't remember them. Which is fucking awesome. The WHOvians all know this. The WHOvians understand how cool and freaky the Renegade, the Silent are. But those in Magic who sort of think that's a really weird mechanic, it makes total sense, because these aliens will look at you, they'll interact with you, they'll do things, and they'll manipulate you. And the moment you turn around, or the moment you stop looking at them, you don't remember. But you have been influenced by them. Your subconscious has been influenced by them. Because the frontal part of your brain doesn't remember. It doesn't remember them, but it remembers the impact they made on you. So then you've been subconsciously altered to do things. Or sometimes behave a certain way. So cool. So flavorful. I'm just going to keep saying that over and over and over again. Alright. My last MVP. And it was the Rani. Now, the Rani is an old enemy from the original series of Doctor Who. I can't remember which Doctor it was. I'll have to check it out. But the Rani has a very interesting ability because she makes an enchantment which you can enchant on a creature an opponent controls, and it actually buffs that creature. It gives them a +2 to their power and to their defense, and it goads them. There's that key word again. That's where that linear, like that synergy I was talking about earlier. Goad is one of the synergies of this deck, and that's really powerful because we want our opponents attacking each other and leaving us the fuck alone. So that's what Rani does. She enchants them, and that creature is stuck like that. They obey her. She has altered their mind and their chemistry. I'll see if you can see that on the camera. Let's see if it looks any good. Not really. See if I can get it. Nah. But anyway, Mark of the Rani. You stick that on their card. It is goaded. It has increased power and increased toughness. And it's not attacking you, which is brilliant. But it's her second part that we're going to talk about, and that is when a goaded creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, investigate. That's another type of token. That's a clue. That's something... It is. It's a clue token, which you can then sacrifice to draw a card, and that's what we want to do in Magic a lot of the time. The three main archetypes, or three main synergies of this deck is artifacts or artifact creatures. And Missy does that. We saw her before. I'll bring her up on the thing again. She makes Cybermen perfect. She wants to hurt our opponents for as many artifact creatures we have. I'll bring that down now. And that's that villainous choice. And we have a whole bunch of villainous choice ones. There was the Dalek Emperor. I'm going to pause this till I find them. Right, we're back. So, we have the Veil Yard. I'll bring that up. That has, if an opponent would face a villainous choice, they face it again. And while voting, I may vote an additional time. There are other cards throughout Magic's history that require players to vote on one thing or another. In this deck, not so much. It's mostly an opponent's choice constantly, but making them vote twice is really, really powerful. Next one is the Sycorax Commander. If anyone remembers that, that's, I think, David Tennant's first bad guy enemy when he comes onto the show. He makes you either discard a bunch of cards and draw one less, or take a bunch of damage equal to the number of cards in your hand. It's a one-time effect, which is not amazing, but also, if you ever watch the show, you realize the Sycorax was a really lame fucking enemy. I'm sorry, it's true. They were fucking weird. They were lame. They had a one-off. They literally came, got fucked over in about 5 minutes by the Doctor, and then that was pretty much the last I think I've seen of them. We have the Cult of Skaro. Cult of Skaro is a classic Doctor Who enemy, which I'm sure all my Whovians will love right now, but the Cult of Skaro has a randomized effect where when it attacks, you choose one of the 4 options that you can see in front of you. That +1 counter, which I told you about. Draw 2 cards, which is always good. Make a Dalek, or each opponent loses 4 life. And I just normally roll a dice for that one. Nice and easy, but that's always good fun. That's always good fun having a little bit of randomness in here. And then the last one is Davos, who is the creator of the Daleks. He has that keyword again, menace, but then he says at the end of your turn, you create one of those Daleks. If an opponent has lost 3 or more life, very easy to do. Then each opponent faces a villainous choice. Well, I've lost track of my reading. I can't. Here we go. Sorry, my eyes could not track for some reason. Dyslexia. You draw a card, or that player discards a card. That means throw one away. If you've got 7 in your hand, you throw one away. You have 6 at the start of your turn or the end of your turn. That's not too bad. Most people don't really want to throw away cards, so they'll let you draw one. But then sometimes throwing away a card is nothing, and they don't want you to have more card advantage. So it's okay. It's not too bad. It's not stupidly overpowerful like the Dalek Emperor or Missy. Missy's one is very powerful. But yeah, it's good. It's interesting. I want to bring up the point that we have special cards like Cyberman Squadron, Cyberman Patrol, Delete. That's more of that artifact theme that I was telling you about, that artifact creature theme. We have a whole bunch of Daleks. Sorry, we also have the Cybermat and the Cyber Controller. Of course, we need the Cyber Controller in this deck, because who doesn't love the creator of the Cyberman? I forgot one more. We also have Ashad the Lone Cyberman, which is so cool. He's a legendary creature that you can build a deck around. Basically, he wants you to make copies of artifacts and artifact creatures you control. Then we got to have Daleks in the enemy's deck, so we have the spell Exterminate. If you tap an untapped Dalek, you get a copy of the spell, which is excellent, especially when you have a bunch of them. We have the Dalek Squadron, which is awesome. The Dalek Squadron basic copies itself on attack. That's what that little fancy myriad word is. Then we have the Dalek drone. The Dalek drone has exterminate. So when it enters the battlefield, it destroys a target creature and deals damage to an opponent. Beautiful. And then we have 2 sagas. That's the enchantments that you go turn by turn down the saga. And we have the Genesis of the Daleks and Death in Heaven, which one makes a bunch of Daleks, and it makes our opponents face a villainous choice. Either destroy all Daleks, and then they lose life equal to the total power of those Daleks, or destroy all non-Dalek creatures. Just brilliant. And the Death in Heaven... Death? The Death in Heaven? The Death in Heaven is, again, the Cybermen. So it makes... the target mill 2 cards on top of their library, which is what we talked about earlier, and then you exile all creature cards from... Hold on. Put all creature cards exiled with Death of Heaven onto the battlefield, face down as 2/2 Cybermen. Once again, we've got that thing where Missy uses the dead to create a Cybertronic army, which is just fucking cool. This was a cracker. As a fan of Doctor Who, as a very as a Magic player, I play at least once a week, several games in one night. This is really, really cool. I've seen some of the other decks. They're really interesting. If you are a Doctor Who fan and you've never played Magic, but you kind of just want the product to have the product, fucking go for it, because it's honestly kind of worth it. I'm sure if you are a Doctor Who fan, you're a total nerd, which means you probably have nerd friends, and some of them would have to play Magic. Could only guess. But if not, go to your local game store on Friday Night Magic and see if someone wants to play a really casual game with you because you've never played before. Something like that. They could walk you through the steps. In the Magic community, we're always happy to have more and more people join us, more and more people converted to playing the game of Magic. I've converted several people myself, just because I was having so much fun. I'm like, do you want to play? And they're like, I don't know. And now they're hardcore players like I am. So, a little bit pick your audience, but also you kind of can't go wrong. Nerds playing nerd games. I think it's the Universe Beyonds. They've done it with Warhammer, and I made a Warhammer review because I got the Necrons deck. And we've also had a Lord of the Rings pre-con, so if you're a Lord of the Rings fan as well, if you're not really super into Magic, but you are into one of these other IPs like Warhammer or like Lord of the Rings, and you don't follow anything to do with Magic, so you don't hear anything about it, go check it out, because it's really, really good. I think it's a really great way to introduce people who have the love of sci-fi or the love of fantasy or the love of war games into Magic, and I think you're going to love it too. If you're a WHOvian and you want to check out the deck lists, you can go on MTG Goldfish, you can go into what's called EDH Rec. I might put all these in the description in the bottom, all these links, so you can actually look at the deck list, you can see the cards, and you go, oh, that's so cool because that was my favorite character, or that's my favorite doctor. And if and when you start playing, you can learn that you don't always have to use the top face commander. You can use any of the legendary creatures that are in there as long as they share the coloring of your cards. And a lot of the doctors now too, a lot of the other precon decks, aside from the Masters of Evil, the other 3 precon decks, they actually have a system called Doctor's Companion. So you can have that as a secondary commander. So they sit side by side in the command zone. You can play them separately and then together, and they have effects. They actually have an effect which will boost your doctor's ability to do what it does, which is fucking cool, because that's what the Doctor's Companion does. They're there to help the Doctor, to be part of his adventures. So that's also really cool. I think this is, for me personally, I think this has to be one of the best Universe Beyond crossovers that Magic has done. Lord of the Rings was obviously really, really awesome, but it didn't bring in any new mechanics that we haven't seen before. They made so many different versions of the same characters. So there's several different versions of Aragorn because of him throughout the story. Same as Gandalf and Frodo and all the gang, everybody. And that's really cool to see. But also, they were very linear in a lot of the way they work. A lot of them are just very combat based. It's a, big adventure war story sort of thing. So they were really cool, but I think this one has outdone them all so far. The Warhammer ones were fucking amazing and super powerful within their own unit. The Lord of the Rings was just really awesome to see a characterization or an art and a mechanic built around all the characters, and it made it really fun. But I think Doctor Who has just so much to offer. Changing the doctors around, with changing the companions around. You didn't even have to have the companion that went with that doctor. You can back and forth, switch them around, which is really fucking awesome. With the Masters of Evil, there's a few variants that you could use for the main face commander, but all the villainous choice cards are just really, really good. Especially that Dalek Emperor. I cannot tell you how fucking, in 2 turns you can have an army. That's all I'm saying. That just gets out of control. And the way that they've stuck so closely to the story and how everything worked in the show, and having everything just having a mechanic or a set of synergies to basically have all your opponents making really shit decisions. It's either one bad decision or another, or it's having them all attack each other and manipulate the whole board. It is so on theme. It's so fucking good. I cannot tell you how much I've enjoyed playing this deck. So honestly, if you're a Whovian, if you've never played Magic and you want to start somewhere, same with Warhammer and Lord of the Rings guys, go out and get yourself it's called pre-con because it's pre-constructed. A pre-constructed deck that is already suited up, kitted out, fucking full of synergies to do with itself, and ready to kick ass, honestly. I love it. I hope you love it. I think this, like I said, I think this is the best one so far. And I don't have much more to say. Yeah, I've just fucking 10 out of 10, honestly. I can't wait for the next Universal crossover to see what we get. I think that's it. I think I'm done rambling. Alright. I'm done geeking out. Whovians, I hope you get into Magic. I hope this inspires you to look into it and maybe play a bit of Magic, or find someone who plays Magic to teach you. Magic fans, I hope this kind of encourages you a little bit to watch some Doctor Who to see what you're getting into. I'll catch you later when I do my next book review. Bye, guys.